Hey, everybody. It's good to be back down at Fort Benning for a couple of years now. I like to get up here once in a while. But one of the great pleasures I have in being in the Fort Benning community is to be surrounded with a lot of great leaders, great soldiers and their families. One of my most recent brand new good friends is our guest speaker today, Command Sergeant Major Tim Metheny. He came to us back in December of last year, but he became a resident in my hotel for almost 4 months while his family followed him from Fort Hood. But Tim is the Commandant of the NCO Academy at Fort Benning. And he trains something like 26,000 NCOs across the spectrum in infantry and armor. He's become a very dear personal friend and a great leader and a Command Sergeant Major that's going to have a long trajectory into the future Army force. So I've invited him here to share with us the experience that he has and the game sets that he sees being laid out in this new, rapidly shrinking Army. So without any further ado, Command Sergeant Major, it's all yours.
Hey, this is a great honor for me to be with a group of men. I understand that freedom is not free, and I understand that we today, our society, sleeps under the blanket of freedom that you guys provided. And just tell you a little bit about me. I am the grandson of a senior chief bosun mate. Probably would have made Master Chief if he'd quit drinking and fighting. But a Bronze Star winner in World War II, Silver Star winner, Purple Heart in Korea, and the son of a retired naval captain. And I wasn't in Vietnam, but I was the product of the first Vietnam tour completing before the second Vietnam tour kicked off. So we're acquainted here. I'm sure many of you had that same experience. I just tell you a little bit about expectations. I hope you didn't expect to hear greatness, but yesterday I got a phone call probably about 12:30, 1 o'clock. My wife, gorgeous lady of 22 years, said, if you get home early, I've got a surprise for you. And you know that those days don't come along very often. And so about 14:30, I snuck out of the office yesterday afternoon, and I got home, and there was a stump in my front yard about the size of one of these tables that a gentleman had come over and ground up. And I said, what's my surprise? And she said, I told him that we wanted all that mulch and that you were going to put it in the flower bed. So I spent all afternoon yesterday 9 truckloads of mulch getting moved around the house. So don't expect too much from today. Just tell you, almost 25 years ago, I was a sophomore in college at Southeast Missouri State University. And in December, we jumped into Panama. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I went home, I told my dad, I said, I'm enlisting the day I'm quitting school. And I joined the Army for 2 years, 17 weeks. Got sent to Baumholder, Germany, and 6 months after I got there, deployed to Desert Storm. And I re-enlisted on the very last day of that 2-year, 17-year hitch. And so almost 25 years later, I'm still doing it, and I love it every day. Because there's nothing better than training our soldiers and the husbands and wives and fathers and mothers that give their kids to us to entrust them to continue the legacy and protect their freedoms. It's just an awesome honor. I'm an armored guy by trade, but I've got 16 years in the 82nd Airborne Division. I'm one of those guys that the infantry kind of accepts me because I've been to all the cool guy schools they've been to. My only real heavy experience was as a battalion brigade sergeant major down in Fort Hood, Texas, 3-8 Cav, and then I was a command sergeant major for 3rd Brigade Armored Combat Team. Back in November, I got a phone call. I just got selected to go take 3rd Brigade of the 82nd Airborne. It's my #1 assignment out of 42. And I get a phone call, and I answer the phone, Sergeant Major, and he says, hey, Tim, it's Ray Chandler, the Sergeant Major of the Army. And I said, hey, Sergeant Major, how you doing? He said, I just want to congratulate you. You're the new commandant down at Fort Benning, Georgia. And I said, well, Sergeant Major, I'm headed to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, my #1 job in February. And he says, Yeah, I'm really proud of you. You're going to do some great stuff down there in Georgia, and I look forward to what you're going to put together. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I will throw out a disclaimer here because I'm going to talk about a couple topics that aren't necessarily the Army's views. They're just my personal views. But I can talk to you about anything you want to talk about, and I'd really like to have a discussion. So if you have a question on something I'm talking about, let's just bring it up as we go. But the big thing is, in talking to our senior leaders, we are going from an Army at war to an Army of preparation. And we're doing it at a time with a lot of cutbacks, a lot of budget. As you know, we are getting rid of close to 100,000 soldiers and their families over the next 10 months. So it's a trying time. But I actually look at it kind of post-Vietnam and kind of post-Desert Storm, as it's not a good thing downsizing ever, but we have an opportunity, and we're at a transition point where I think that we can really have the best Army that we've ever had. And I say that because for the last 10 years, we've been kind of open with who we let in. And some of those folks, I like to call them one-trick ponies. I've got 7 deployments, I've got this, but that's all they're good at. And I think we have the ability right now to be selective on who we're going to retain and retain our best and take the lessons that we had from 1980s and 1990s and then take the lessons that we've learned over the last 12 years of persistent conflict to create a product that will best serve this nation. One of the big things that we're struggling with right now is we talk a lot about resiliency, but what we have is a generation of dependency. And I see it every day, and it's in our middle management. Because before, most of you know, if any of you ever had a platoon sergeant, that was the roughest, toughest guy you've ever met, and he was the subject matter expert on everything that you were doing, and he trained that lieutenant. Well, for the last 10 years, we got real good at kicking in doors, we got real good at kinetic firefights, but we got real bad at some of our leadership traits. And so that platoon sergeant that you remember is not what we have today. We have some good ones out there, but the void in training now stops with the first sergeant, the command sergeant major. So I took it upon my role when I became the commandant is I wanted to restore the importance of the middle management and make a sergeant and a staff sergeant a leader and a sergeant first class like a walking god. And I think we're getting there. I will tell you, when I came on board, General H.R. McMaster was commander, and he called me in the office. He says, "Tim, I want you to put Rigor into our courses." And I said, "I don't know what that is, sir. You know, can you give me a direction?" He says, "I don't know what it is either, but I just watched a little chubby kid walk across the stage as a distinguished honor graduate, and I'm pretty sure he's not the most physically fit, brightest guy that's in that class of 160. So he kind of challenged me to sit down. And if you don't know what I'm teaching, I kind of left that out. But we have everything, every professional military course for non-commissioned officers, for the armor school, and for the infantry school. So I train Warrior Leaders course, which is a basic MOS non-specific course for any junior leader that wants to be a non-commissioned officer, 2 to 5 years in the Army. Then I have 11 Bravo infantrymen, 11 Charlie indirect fire infantrymen, 19 Delta Cavalry Scout, and 19 Kilo Armored Crewman ALC, as long as 91 Alpha and 91 Mike, the Bradley and Tank Maintainer Assistance Managers. And then we have Maneuver Senior Leaders course, which is all E7 platoon sergeants, all 4 MOSs, armor and infantry. So he asked me, put Rigor into the course. And I'm not a smart guy, I'm kind of a battering ram. And I don't get involved, or I don't try to figure out how people think or how they learn. I always figured there's 2 ways you learn. It's mindless repetition or blunt force trauma. Yeah, you pee on the electric fence one time and you know it's a bad idea. So I sit down and I brought in some of my smart guys, and the first thing I did is said we don't need a grade point average to figure out who the smart guys are. So what we did is we took the course and we broke it down in about 10 different areas, and we came up with an overall GPA. They're accountable for everything they do from the minute they step on our campus now. So if you go out for your physical fitness test and you only do 42 push-ups because that's the minimum, good. You just gave up 60 points on your overall GPA. That's 10% of your total grade. we added dismounted land nav. We added a 1,500-word personal experience monogram paper so we can see how they write, how articulate they are. We put in a leadership evaluation in both garrison and a 96-hour field training exercise to where they have to demonstrate their expertise and lead soldiers under adverse circumstances. And then one of the coolest things I think we did is we put in a peer evaluation. Because I don't know about you guys, but if somebody tells me I'm screwed up, all right, well, you might be screwed up. But if 15 of my closest friends rate me on the 10 things that I think are important to be a soldier and they tell me I'm screwed up, I probably need to start looking at myself. So giving the peers a vote to determine the grade point average. And then we took that and we tiered it. So tier 1 is honors, top 20%. And tier 2 is if you fail one exam or you get a negative counseling, you automatically go to tier 2. Tier 3 would be if you fail 2 or more, and then tier 4, you're going to get a marginal evaluation regardless of what your overall grade point average is. And by doing that, we started enumerating, which I call lateral accountability, and we're telling the truth. So every kid that graduates from our course will get an academic evaluation report that says, this soldier finished number 1 of 160 assigned, or he's number 160 of 160 assigned. Which really helps the Army out. I sat on the Sergeant First Class Promotion Board last year, and every evaluation I looked at, I think I was telling Rick earlier, 87% of every evaluation I looked at had that soldier rated 1-1 among the best, top of his peers. And we just know that's not true, and we have a problem, and I call it the 9th place trophy generation, because we grew up when we did something bad, I got taken to the woodshed. And if I wasn't good enough to make the football team, I got cut. Where my son played on a football team for his high school, and it was the 4th-string football team, and it had 75 people. And I call it, hey, here's your 9th place trophy. We're not even going to keep score. And that's really hurt our society today, because our sergeants and our sergeants first class think they're entitled instead of having to earn their way. So when they come to our courses, rest assured, when they leave there, they're going to know that if I did very good, it's because I put the time in, I put the effort in, I was able to work as a member of a team, and I had character, I had intellect, and I created a presence wherever I came and went. One of the other challenges that we're going to have, I don't know if you've heard of Soldier 2020, but we have what's called the WIDA program, Women in Combat Arms. And just my personal opinion, I'm all for it. I think that this generation probably had to fight a thing called racism and deal with the integration of different races into our Army. My generation was homosexuality. There's no way we'll ever have gays serving. My kids go to school now, and it runs rampant in school. I think in 10 years, I don't think we're going to have a problem with this, because the follow-on generation has accepted it. And the Army typically sets the tone for society. And we're going to have to break societal norms, but I do believe, honestly, there's 2 females that work for me right now that we're training up, and I think one of them will be the first female Ranger graduate in the history of the Army. But I will tell you that I've got 2 of them now that teach in the infantry school, and they do a phenomenal job. So it's one of the challenges that we're gonna have to work through. The Chief of Staff will be on Fort Benning. General Odierno is coming in tomorrow, and his big talking point is how we're going to draw down our Army now. I think this is a very positive thing. As I talked a little bit earlier, we've got an Army where we let in some folks that weren't all that good because we simply needed the bodies over the last 10 years. And we've got an opportunity to downgrade and get rid of them. Now, I will tell you that 100,000 seems like a lot. I will tell you only about 7,000 of those are going to be forced out because ETS, PCS retirement is going to take a large chunk. Those that just choose not to re-enlist, it's going to take, but about 5,000 of those are going to, but we've let in a lot of folks with DUIs, with drug problems, with some different background challenges that were okay 10 years ago. And those folks are going to be, I know you saw the news, 1,800 captains got released. They've got to be out of the Army by March. We're going to, I'm sorry?
550 majors.
Yeah, 550 majors. That's going to equate to about 4,000 enlisted troopers getting sent home. But most of those are doing it the right way because our commanders are smart and they're just denying reenlistment, or they're actually doing the separation paperwork that we've just kind of avoided for the last 2 years because, hey, I just got back from Iraq and I'm going to Afghanistan in 12 months, and I need this guy on a tank or on a Bradley or on the front line. So those problems are going to take care of themselves. And I think what we're doing at the academy is just giving the Army a better look at itself. And talking with Sergeant Major Daly, the TRADOC Sergeant Major, he really likes what we're doing. He's going to put it in every military educational course across the United States Army because it gives the Army an abstract look at itself, and we actually rate folks against their peers, and it shows up on their academic reports and in their official fish, and it's going to create a better Army in the long run. But actually, I'd just like to open it up to any questions anybody might have.
We've got microphones here, Ed.
I don't have my hearing aids on either. So.
Ed, you've got a question? No, we'll let you speak into the microphone.
I love this, you know that.
Yeah.
The only couple of questions. Number one is the Army doing anything to prepare these people to go back into civilian society?
Absolutely.
Okay. Second question is, what are you doing to recruit new people? Is that going to stop or what?
No, the retention mission really hasn't changed because that's the highest turnover. I would tell you, like in my Warrior Leaders course, my guys with 2 to 5 years in, normally in their first enlistment, only about 40% of those folks actually re-enlist. So that's a recurring pool that's going to turn over. The target population to get rid of now is we've got a lot of sergeants and staff sergeants, 15 to 19 years in service, that aren't ever going to go up. They're very mediocre, but they're taking a slot. And we deal with, for me, and this is one of those personal things, for me it's a lack of pride. When I go out and I run a 5-mile run, 9-minute pace with every course, and I had 15 sergeant first class that couldn't keep up last week. And they don't care. There's no pride. It's okay to have a profile. I think I've been on sick call twice in 26 years, and once with a separated shoulder at Ranger School. So, it's how do we get that mentality of physical, mental, and emotional toughness, and don't be dependent on a program, but be resilient within yourself. Just my thoughts, but I hear it all the time. Well, I have PTSD or something like that. I hate to tell you, dude, but if you were a knucklehead before you went deployed, that's not an excuse to be a knucklehead when you get back. And just my thoughts.
What are you doing to release them and work them into?
Up close.
I'm sorry?
Okay, the other part is what's the Army doing to put these people back into society? Or are they doing it?
No, they are. 18 months out from separation, they go into a program that's called ACAP. Well, it's no longer, it's called Soldier for Life now, but it used to be the Army Career Alumni Program. I don't know if you know it, but when we send somebody home, we pay the unemployment. Almost $12 billion was spent last year on unemployment. So the better we can prepare them for a follow-on job, there's job fairs on post every week where we bring major corporations in. They do resume building classes. We get them into secondary education schools because we understand that you're a high school graduate and you're qualified to push a broom, you're probably not driving a Lexus.
Yeah, Sergeant Major, just one quick note here from on this side is exactly one of the programs. The Hire Heroes program is exactly one of the programs. We've been to Benning, worked with a number of the guys in the Warrior Transition Battalion, and that's what we're heading off to Fort Gordon to work with 24 guys who will be transitioning and women out of the service. So we, this group is actively involved in helping to transition those guys out of the service.
That's awesome. We really appreciate that because they did raise their hand at a time of war. Everybody that we've had that's come in the last 10 years knew they were deploying.
You're saying that we're owed unemployment for all that back then?
No, when I'll write you a check. But, and I would, it's another, and everybody here is obviously deployed to combat, but I would tell you the other misnomer is we have a large population that can't discern between being deployed and being in combat. I've been deployed 7 times. I've been in combat twice. So just because I went somewhere doesn't really mean I did something. So.
Command Sergeant Major, it seems like we need to be taking a hard look at our potential adversaries, because as the Army gets down to about 428,000, I haven't noticed that Captain Putin is downsizing, and I'm particularly interested in what's happening with China. Do we look at the way they train and prepare their non-commissioned officers as well?
To be honest with you, we've probably trained about half of their non-commissioned officers. Over the last 10 years with all the partnerships, and I probably get 2 foreign dignitaries a week that come in and look at how we're training our NCOs and looking up. I just brought 4 of my guys back from the Republic of Georgia 2 weeks ago. We established a non-commissioned officer academy for them. Yeah, I don't want to get into politics because I don't like our foreign policy right now. But I still work for the Commander-in-Chief. But yeah, I think it's time to take a little bit of momentum and be a force to be reckoned with again, instead of a laughing stock.
Sergeant Major, I have 2 technical questions. What pay grades are your students, and what branches of the Army does the Academy reach out to? Is it combat arms or all of the branches in the Army?
I actually have 24 programs of instruction, 8 different courses. We train close to 26,000 students a year. I run a Warrior Leaders course, which is 2 to 5 years in the Army. It's MOS non-specific. It's gender integrated, so males and females in the same course. 64 students a course, 4 weeks long. Again, I run 10 of those a year, and that's for specialist to sergeant. Then my infantry and armor ALCs, advanced leader course, that's for mid-grade leadership, section leader, squad leader, platoon tank commander. Normally 5 to 7 years in the Army, sergeant to staff sergeant, and then the maneuver senior leaders course, which is tankers, scouts, mortars, and infantrymen, and that's E6 promotable to E7. 7 weeks in length, and we run 6 of those a year. Yes, sir.
Sergeant Major, in the front page of USA Today, I don't know if you saw the article, but it was giving a breakdown of the number of officers and majors, etc. And my question I'm leading up to is who ordered this? Is it the Pentagon? Is it the different branches? But how many were black? How many were Hispanic? How many were this? How many were that? To me, that's and a lot of us, that's a divisive thing in the military, because as so many in this room know, it doesn't matter when you get wounded or you're in combat what color your skin is, where you go to church, or what your ethnicity is. That means your background for Marines. But anyway, who's ordering this stuff and causing? To me, it's a divisive nature again.
Well, I would tell you that here's how that system works for the QMP, QSP, those are the quality management program or the quality separation program. What happens when they have a promotion board? You bring in several senior officers and several senior sergeant majors for the enlisted. I'll talk enlisted side, but it works the same for the officers. They're from different backgrounds of the Army, but they're all got about the same experience level. So for the Master Sergeant board, the E8 board that I sat on, I had 2 full bird colonels, 2 06s, 2 one-star generals, and then 5 sergeants majors. And what we do, we sit down and we don't figure out who's getting promoted. We don't figure out who's getting separated. All we do, our job is to look at every file, and you get about 2.5 minutes to look at each file with a DA photo, and then with all their evaluations, and then with their school reports. So I get about 2.5 minutes, and then I rate that person 1 through 6+, just based on a review of his records. And you do 2 days of test rating. So, because you can't talk to anybody else, you can't take any notes, you're in a little cubicle and it just pops up on the screen, and you rate how you rate. You do a test vote and you determine what your disparity rating is. So for my board, it was 1 point. So if I rated you a 6+ and somebody else rated you a 5, your record will pop up for both of us again and say, re-rate this guy, so that we're both rating him within 1 point. And all I am doing is racking and stacking number 1 to number 7,000. And then that goes to HRC, and HRC looks at official numbers, because we're losing 10 brigades this next year. And okay, so those slots went away. So we need to promote this many, and then the bottom 10%, this is who we're separating. So it's not based on race, religion, anything else. It's just simply how you were rated. And a lot of those guys, I'll tell you, were low-hanging fruit. They're a guy with the DUI, they're a guy with some sharp incident, or they've got something in their records. I've yet to see somebody that is absolutely a stellar soldier be separated.
The thing is, asking basically is who's breaking it down, putting it out in the press like that, because that's the first thing you look at, and it creates divisiveness, and it gives guys that didn't serve it that care about that stuff. Why do we have to break it down that way? I know you guys know, but who doesn't?
I haven't seen your
That's
answer.
Department of Defense, civilian, political appointees, Wayne, has nothing to do with Department of Army. That's an after reaction. That's an after reaction.
Sergeant Major, first of all, thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for everything you do. My question is, when these cuts come about and we get down to 425 or 428, whatever the number is that they're shooting for, what percentage of those troops that are left are going to be combat arms versus support troops?
I don't know. I can tell you that typically it's 3 to 1, 3 support for every combat trooper there is.
So we could potentially be looking at 140,000 active duty combat troops versus 275, 280.
It's quite possible.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know enough about it to give you an accurate answer.
All right, Sergeant Major, I got one more over here. And George, I know you got a couple, at least one question for you. Go ahead.
Sergeant Major, gracias por venir hoy. Thank you for coming here to speak to us today. What is your typical profile on a recruit, a basic Army recruit going into the service? And how do you attract those folks? I've seen something about a crackdown on tattoos and so forth, but I'm really interested in the population that you need them in the future. How are you recruiting them?
It's very difficult. Our recruiters have a very tough mission. Our recruiters have a very tough mission today because less than 1% of the United States population is even qualified to serve on paper. The problem is the guy that is an all-star that I'm trying to pick up and get him to join our team is also getting recruited by the University of Missouri to go into, there's a lot of demand for that. We have a horrible problem with obesity. Less than that 1%, or of that 1%, close to half of that doesn't meet the minimum height weight standards required just to get into basic training. So the recruiting mission is very tough. I will tell you, for me, trying to find just a guy to go to be a drill sergeant, we're critically short on drill sergeants right now. I looked through, in my brigade of 7,500 troopers, I looked through, I want to say, close to 400 enlisted record briefs, basically a snapshot of your service record, and I had 25 guys out of that 350 that fit the bill just on paper to go to the school. To get 500 drill sergeants, it takes 1,500 applicants.
Command Sergeant Major, in the back. Over the last about 6 to 10 years, there's been lots of high-ranking officers that have been caught in various kinds of scandals.
Yes, sir.
Granted, the NCO Corps does not get the same publicity. However, what do you do as far as teaching, especially at the Sergeant Major level, integrity and to do the right thing, to stay out of scandals, figure out what to do with your life to prevent those kinds of things? Is that part of your curriculum?
Absolutely. I actually talked to, and I talked to I have a private luncheon with every female soldier just to talk about SHARP, and it's got to be a battle drill. How do you prevent it? If it's going to happen, you got to be prepared to have a plan in place so when it does happen, you can immediately action on it and snuff it out. But the biggest thing is be a grown-up, be an adult, be a professional, and we teach the Army profession of ethics. Because if you're doing that, I'm a firm believer that character is what you do when nobody else is looking. And if you have that ingrained into your moral and into your fiber, you're not going to have those issues. The problems that we have and the ones that make the headlines are the folks that are involved in those programs. And while I worked 25 years to be technically and tactically proficient, and I'm sure you see it in business, those folks work to manipulate Army programs to use them for their advantage. But really, it's just being accountable.
Sergeant Major, we really appreciate your being here. Thank you very much. Everybody, thank you. Okay, we got one thing to give you too, okay? I know some of you probably have some additional questions you'd like to ask him. I'm trying to be punctual and be on time. We've got 1 minute. But since you were so graciously accepted into this world during the Vietnam War, we are actually going to honor you with our Vietnam Service Medal, which is a paperweight, and you can use this to put on top of all those files you have to look at. But anyway, we appreciate your service. It's great to have you. You clearly are the model of what we believe you should be as a soldier in this Army today. And thank you so much for your service. Thank you.
I really am. I'm flattered, especially folks not only that just serve, but continue to serve the community and continue to do great things. And I'll leave you, and Duke's heard me say this a couple times before at some graduations, but my favorite Bible verse is Isaiah 6:8. And the Lord spoke and said, "Who shall I send? Who will go for us?" And I said, "Here I am, send me." And so I thank every one of you for the sacrifice that you made for our freedom. Because when your nation asked, you said, "Here I am, send me," and I salute you.
Thank you.